and I hear them call me by my name. So I run into the kitchen to check, and there's nobody there.
And I start to like hear like my closet door start to open.
Oh, hell no.
Like
Oh
from
my
the inside.
Oh, hell no.
All of a sudden, for no reason, I woke up in the middle of the night. Like my eyes just snapped open. And it's that strange feeling that you have when something wakes you up. You don't know what has woken you up until you either see what it was or you hear whatever it was.
If you like all things spooky, check out Spooky Tales. We, Christina
and MJ, talk about all things spooky like haunted places, myths, and legends,
with a focus on Latin America.
New episodes every Friday.
Listen in your favorite podcast apps as well as spookytales.com.
We are
Cultivate.
We are Cultivate.
Hello and welcome to a special mini-sode of Ye Olde Crime, the show where Maddie and I discuss the funny, strange, and obscure crimes of yesteryear every Wednesday. This special bi-weekly segment is called Can You Crack the Cramp-Word, which is slang for a difficult or obscure term, which I thought was very fitting. And joining me today are Martha and Charles from the Full Circle podcast. And before we begin, I'd like to give them the opportunity to tell us a little more about themselves and their show before we get started.
Hi, I am Charles. I am co-host of Full Circle, the podcast. And I am, in addition to being a podcaster, I am a lighting designer and a performer and all-around creative person.
And all those things.
Yes.
And I am Martha, and I'm also here. And I am the other co-host of Full Circle, the podcast. It's really nice to be here. It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see you too. So, first question, let's get the obvious out of the way. How did the two of you meet and come up with the idea of your podcast?
Go.
Well, right, which thing? We met 20 years ago. More than 20 years ago.
Math.
A new bar had opened. I worked on the campus of the University of Pennsylvania. I was an employee there. And
I worked up the street.
And Charles was teaching dance about a block away. And this new little bar opened, and they had wood-fired pizza and really cool little place. And it just happened to be at the foot of my building. So we kind of became regulars there. And so we would just always see each other, and we talked literally for 10 years, on and off, about life, and had great conversation. And then in 2012,
yes,
I had been through a second divorce, and I was exploring the dating scene, and I was lamenting just how bad things were out there. And Charles said, "Well, are you ever going to ask me out?" And I was like,
awesome.
Yeah, I was like, huh, sure. And that was that. So that was 10 years ago, and now we're engaged.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so we've known each other a really long time. The idea for the podcast, we owned a bar together for 5 years until COVID. And
Thanks, COVID.
we talked about podcasting out of the bar. We had different ideas. Charles had different friends he was talking to. And nothing was happening.
A lot of people talked about doing things, but I couldn't find anyone to do things.
Or they were too busy, they were whatever. And, I said, honestly, we have really interesting conversations in our house all the time.
True.
We used to have them in the bar, and there's nothing is off the table. Because we do, of necessity, talk about race and talk about orientation and talk about gender all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we're each other's sounding boards for just kind of getting a clearer picture of whatever's going on, whatever we're reading, whatever's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really kind of that's what's behind the podcast was, what if we just put a microphone on our table where we both live and we don't rely on anyone else each week, and let's just see what happens. And that's what we do.
Yeah.
So we've done it for a year. We just entered season 2. We do interviews and fun things here and there, but our regular format is really kind of combing the news, always finding good news.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not.
right, but we
Yeah.
definitely pick apart the more troublesome news that affects the community. So yeah, and it's fun and we laugh a lot anyway.
Mhm.
So that's it came from there. We've been together a long time. Just our story, I think, is something people should know is
Mhm.
not only possible, but it happens.
Mhm.
It happens. Queer folk can stay together for years and years and years and actually live a lovely life.
It's true.
And yeah, and a podcast was born.
What?
Right.
I know. I
You're
know.
joking.
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's just crazy talk.
Get out of here with your crazy ideas.
Exactly.
So that's a really good segue to my next question, which is, so I love that you discuss what's going on in the LGBTQIA space
Mhm.
from kind of unique perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole format of your podcast is you kind of just bring the listeners along for the ride as you're having these conversations with one
Right.
another. And obviously it's a commentary podcast. So how do you decide what you're going to discuss each week?
We have a running shared notes list, and we each have our own crazy news digest that we go through, and things look interesting. We'll put them on the list. And then once I see that the list is full, stop. I go through and I put the things in order, in categories, because we have our good news, we have our cavalcade of nonsense, we have Schadenfreude, we have our pop culture palette cleanser, and I put each thing in their respective categories, and then we just go through in order and see what we've got.
Yeah. In some ways, it's gotten easier because we comb a lot of news, and we don't just comb queer news sources, but we always look to them. So,
Mhm.
what is the Advocate talking about? What's on out?
LGBTQ Nation.
Pink News, LGBTQ Nation, Toll Road. We look at a lot of media. Plus, I do read some bloggers and stuff like that. Some folks who have newsletters. I always comb their newsletters to see what they're doing.
I have a Google alert set for LGBTQ, so that's how I get a
Yeah.
lot of global stuff. It's like,
Sure.
oh, this is what they're doing in India now. Wow.
And it's
That's a good idea.
it
Yeah.
has to be interesting because, do you know?
Yeah.
So it's got to be a little bit more than yet another red state decided trans people aren't real. It's
Yeah.
got to be a little
Yeah.
bit more than that.
Yeah, I
Sometimes
skip over
it's-
those because it's like we can only tell the same story, but so many times.
I mean, we
Yeah.
do touch on it, but one of the reasons we do this is, I sit with a group of trans people every week. And, they're at every stage of their transition. Some of them are just thinking about it, thinking about how they're going to talk about their identity. And there was something in the news right before we did our first episode, and I'm trying to remember what. And everyone was really kind of just unhinged by what had just happened. And I went, all right. And I looked into it and I studied it. And then I looked at a couple different things and found out, all right, the ACLU is on the job. They've already done X, Y, and Z. And so that, that's part of the idea of coming full circle is I try not to just harp is not the right word, but not to just bombard listeners with, all this ugly stuff,
Mhm.
but also to bring it bring it around and say, this is happening, but. So it
Mhm.
gets easier over time because of the subjects that we've already covered to revisit things when we find out new information.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's kind of what catches our eye, and we still sort of stick to the format that we don't really discuss it beforehand.
Okay. That's
So
smart.
Your catchphrase is save it for the podcast.
right, we both populate the list, with the URLs and stuff like that, and then Charles usually sorts them, and then we just talk. I'd love to have a researcher, a fact checker, or a producer. It'd be great, but
Yeah.
right now it's us.
Right.
So it's what we happen to find interesting.
Such is the world of independent podcasting. Am I right?
It is,
Mhm.
and I have a goal. I want our listeners to be alive next week to keep tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
So I want them to know. I think we all need to be informed,
Mm-hmm.
and we also need to not allow the news to take over our lives, to take over our essence, to take over, to scare us back into the closet or scare us into a place of, not being able to live.
We got to hit
Mm-hmm.
that sweet spot of like the desire to remain informed and the need to stay sane.
Right.
Exactly. Yep.
Right.
It's a delicate balance.
And we try. We try.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's all you can do is just, do your best.
Exactly.
So my last question is, what advice would you give to someone who is interested in learning more about the community from people who are part of the community?
Google is your friend.
Google
Besides
is your
listening
friend.
to you guys, besides listening to
Well,
you, what are some other things?
I tell parents often and folks that ask this question, check your sources.
Mhm.
There's some great stuff out there. There really is some great information. UCSF, I think, has a whole website called Trans 101 or Transgender 101.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really fact-based, and it's really, the basics. It's really a good introduction to what, the community is. And, it's make sure you know where you're reading. And yeah, it is best to get it where trans people actually are or are
Mhm.
included in the conversation, because that's not happening enough.
Yeah.
But reputable sources are reputable sources, and in this way as well. If you're reading from a GLAD site or you're reading from a PFLAG site, I trust that information a whole lot more than Focus on the Family.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't. If you want to know what those people think of people like me, that's on you.
Mhm.
It is a free country at the moment, but that's not where you're going to get your best information.
Yep.
And, especially if we're talking about parents, especially if we're talking about young people near crisis, I want them to have the best information and the most information they can get their hands on.
Mhm.
There's such an inclination to say this is a phase, or,
Right.
my kid's always trying the next new thing, and really dismiss our identities that way. And oftentimes it's just a tragic effect. So I try to say, just know who you're asking. And it is out there. It's never been easier to be smart. It's never been easier to get, real information from folks who care and
Yep.
folks who know and folks who are the acronym, the LGBTQ.
Yes, the LGBTQ.
Awesome.
Is
Yeah,
that
that's good advice to just be like, do your research, but make sure that you're not just going on disreputable sites or sites that have a certain bias
Right.
towards.
well, yeah. I mean, because if God, even reading the New York Times right now can be very problematic where trans folks are concerned.
Yeah.
Whether they double down or not, that
Mhm.
some of what they've published has been garbage for many reasons.
Which is sad because the New York Times is supposed to be like the beacon of journalistic excellence.
Well, yeah.
Yep.
But, and I had a friend years and years ago who said to me, I get the queer thing. I get the gay thing. I will never understand the trans thing. And I said, it's not yours to understand.
Mhm.
No one's actually asking that. And he's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And I said, when someone tells you who they are, respect that.
Right.
If someone
Yeah.
asks you to use different pronouns than you might feel inclined to assign them, respect that. It's that simple.
It costs you nothing.
And he's like, oh, well, I already do that. And I'm like, yeah, you're all good. You're all good.
Yeah.
I can't, there is no, the one thing I can say is I've yet to really read or hear an analogy that works, that just clicks for, if you're cis, you're cis, and God bless you.
Mhm.
It's just on the side of, that's all the word means,
Mhm.
as opposed to across from, which is what the word, the trans prefix means. Your body and what the world tells you your gender means and how it feels and how it's expressed, it all aligns enough for you.
Mhm.
But because there is no really adequate analogy to explain it, that's why I tell people, trans people, you need trans friends. You don't
Mhm.
just need trans, but you need transference. You need folks for whom you have a shorthand in life.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because that's what most humans have, and it's a thing that we don't always have. But we need to
Mhm.
make sure that we create just to kind of keep each other sane.
Mhm.
But yeah, I've yet to find the adequate. It's like this. No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, it's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
It's not like that at all. Yeah. So check your sources. I think that answers. I think.
And listen and be open and
Yeah.
believe people when they tell you about themselves.
And you
Mhm.
know, the other thing is, we love to talk to people. Most of us are happy to talk to people. Ask respectful questions.
Yep.
If you wouldn't walk up to any other cis woman and ask her to talk about her genitalia, don't ask me.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it was funny because I was running a conference and I was having a cigarette and I was talking to this British woman who was wonderful. And she said, "So have you had the surgery?" And I said, "Let me ask you, have you?" And she said, "What do you mean, love?" And I said, "I mean, like, have you had your labia trimmed? Have you had the old hole tightened? I'm curious." And she said, "I get it." She just laughed and she's like, "I get it. It's not my business, is it?" And I said, "It is not.
Ding, ding, ding.
It is not. We are," and that's, you know, there's the thing. There's the thing. We are all supposed to be more than just our
Mhm.
genitalia, whether it's the genitalia assigned or some of us have designer genitalia. But, you know, really, it's still none of your business. And
Prada.
right.
Mine's Gucci. I don't know about you.
There you go. And it's like,
This season or next?
Who knows?
we are more than who we sleep with. We are more
Yep.
than, you know, what happens to be between our legs. That's supposed to be private anyway.
Yep.
You know, we can all have conversations and live our lives respectfully without ever talking about my whatever.
Yep.
And that should be true for all of us.
We have to talk about our show.
Okay.
Who are we and what do we do?
I am Martha Madrigal.
And I'm Charles Tyson Jr. We are the hosts of Full Circle,
The podcast.
You are a beautiful white trans woman.
I will take that. Of a certain age. And you are a gorgeous black cis pan man who has shared my life for 10 years.
And we're engaged. I put a ring on it.
Yeah, you did put a ring on. It's a pretty ring, too.
Now we have a podcast.
Yeah, there's not much we don't talk about here.
It's true. We talk about LGBTQ issues, headlines of the day. We talk about fun things too, like movies and music and television and pop culture.
Mm-hmm. And we talk about what it is to be black in America and what it is to be trans in America and how those things intersect and collide. And
child, it gets interesting. And you can check us out every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts. Because once again, we're Charles Tyson Jr. and Martha Madrigal, and this is Full Circle, the podcast.
Are we done now?
I think so.
Okay.
So do we have funky terms to talk about? Or, I mean, I can
Yes.
talk about this all night. We can talk about this literally all night.
We are actually at the Victorian slang term section now.
This is so fun. Do you have music to put behind this? There should be.
I don't, but there should be.
There really should be. There should be something very Victorian sounding.
Perhaps a lute.
A
or a
lute.
harpsichord.
A harpsichord. I
There you
love
go, a
that. Or what?
harpsichord.
Yeah, that.
Yeah. Or like some fiddle music or not a banjo, because that's something else entirely.
Right.
Yes, it
That's
is.
That's a different vibe.
And that's when Charles
vibe.
leaves the conversation.
Right.
Charles
We
has
hear-
left the chat.
Right.
We hear banjos. It's time to go.
Exactly. That's our cue to leave.
Exactly.
Alrighty.
When you hear the ye, you don't stay for the ha.
No, right.
No.
Yeah.
That's a good rule to live by.
Serve me well.
He's still here.
There you go. All right, Martha, you were up first.
Yay. Okay.
Your first term is cross cove and molisher.
Cross cove
Charles's face.
and demolisher.
Yes.
And I don't suppose you can use that in a sentence, can you?
I can. It might just take me a second to think of a sentence.
Cross cove and molisher. I feel like
Do we get to know
I
if
feel
it's
like
a noun or a...
demolisher. It came from something
That's
about molisher.
what I was thinking.
Cross cove and molisher. I don't. Wow. And I was trying to be a smartass about it, but I'm not sure what to do with that. Cross cove.
Okay, so an example of it used in a sentence is the cross cove and molisher almost got away with it.
Okay. So are these two different things? Or two
Used together?
synonyms?
Yeah, so cross cove and then molisher are two different terms that are generally used together in this instance.
I'm thinking grifters. I'm thinking just scoundrels, grifters, cheaters, liars. Dastardly people that probably had a mustache to twirl.
That's kind of where I was going.
Ne'er-do-wells.
Final answer. Yeah, I'm thinking, scoundrel or grifter kind of people.
Okay, you are definitely on the right track. So a cross cove and molisher means a man and woman who live by thieving.
Okay.
I was going to say, I wonder if it's gendered. Okay. Live by
Yep.
thieving. So like a Bonnie
Yep.
and Clyde.
Yes. So a cross cove is the male version and molisher is the female version, which a mall is what they would say.
That's what I was
in
thinking.
reference to a woman a lot. So.
Oh, is that where mall
Mall.
comes from?
Maybe.
Because I was thinking a gangster in his mall. That's what I was
like a
thinking.
gun
Yep.
mall.
Yeah.
So would have been a gun molisher, I guess.
Okay.
Or a musket molisher, as it were.
Look at us learning things.
I love that. And the man
The
is a
more
cross
you
cove.
know.
Exactly.
And like the little shooting star goes by.
A cross cove.
And molisher.
Yeah, all right.
Mhm.
I learned something.
I thought that was a fun one. I was like,
I
"That's-
like
that
it.
one's fun.
I've never heard it.
I had not either until I encountered it in my research.
All right.
Are you ready for your first term, Charles?
I am.
Yay.
Your first term is crashing chets.
Crashing chets.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
I'm trying to come up with a version that's not dirty.
I mean, you totally can because
I was
we're good
having
with
a
it.
drink with my two buddies named Chester.
I was just thinking two bottoms in a room.
Crashing chats. Yes.
It's like bumping purses, but different.
But not.
Okay. Crashing chats. The first thing that comes to mind is like derailing the train of thought or derailing a conversation. I know I'm probably very wrong, but that's going to be my answer.
I like where your head is going. Crashing chets is teeth.
Ha.
Okay.
I know.
So you've got a nice
your
set
version
of
was so much more fun.
crashing chets there. Okay. Where did that come from?
Crashing jets. I wonder if it's like gnashing of, but I never heard chets as a word for teeth.
Yeah.
And are there other types of chets that don't crash? I don't know. I'm curious.
Like when you gnash your teeth, you're crashing chets.
I still
I
think
think
two
that's-
bottoms named Chester, but
I like that. I like that
Yeah.
version a lot better. I think just running into each other in a room. I like that.
well, sorta. Sorta.
In a way.
In a fashion.
In a fashion. So now I kind of gave your second term away a little bit, Martha, because your second term is burying a mall. And I told you what a mall is. So you might be able to get this one.
Burying a mall. Isn't that killing a
It's not literal though.
Oh, it's not literal. So to
you're not literally digging a hole and burying a
What
woman.
is to bury a mall? Perhaps it is to disassociate with her or break up with her to form a new alliance with a new mall. Maybe.
It actually is. Burying a mall is when you run away from a mistress.
Ta-da.
Okay.
Ta-da.
This is fun. Okay.
This is.
I know. Isn't it fun? They're just like weird. Okay. Charles, your second term is penny a liner. So like penny a and then liner. Penny a liner.
Like A rockin' and a rollin', a liner, that kind of thing.
It's a
Mhm.
term
Okay.
with spaces between penny, the
Oh.
letter A, correct? And
Yep.
then the word liner.
Right.
Penny a liner.
Does it have something to do with hats?
No, I wish it did.
Oh, okay.
I will give you a hint.
Okay.
This is a paper term.
Huh.
I might have made it more confusing for you then.
Because now I'm thinking of like printmaking.
Or I'm sorry, it's not my turn.
Like when you're setting your margins when you I don't know, tell me.
I'm wondering if it's the envelope, if it's got something to do with an envelope or the inside of the envelope. That's what I was wondering.
Okay.
Penny a liner.
Penny a liner is someone who contributes to either the local news, accidents, fires, scandal, basically anyone who contributes something to a newspaper, because they would pay them by the line.
Like nickel a comment.
Oh, a penny a liner.
Penny a line
okay.
is the person getting
Okay.
paid a penny a line.
That
right?
makes sense.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, like
Yep.
a nickel a comment.
Right.
Yep.
For the trolls.
Yeah. So someone who, one of the examples is fashionable gossip or club jokes. You would get paid, you'd be a penny a liner and you would get paid for however many lines were published in the paper.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah.
At a penny a piece.
So what do you do?
A
I'm
lot.
a penny a liner.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, is that at all derogatory? Does that mean not a reputable journalist in some way? I wonder.
I don't think it's derogatory. I think it's more of a term for somebody who is not a journalist who
Well,
shares something.
It's kind of what I
So-
mean, but I just wondered if there was something derogatory about it. Like, she's not a journalist. She's a gossip columnist. Like
a
that.
penny
Oh,
liner.
yeah.
This is not a journalist. This is a penny liner.
Right.
Like that.
It is derogatory.
Up.
I just looked it up. Yep.
You're better
It
at
could
this
also
than I
mean
am.
a hack writer or a journalist.
A
Right.
hack.
That's
There we
So
go.
kind of what I was
hack, yep.
thinking, yeah.
There we go.
Yep. Look at you. You're so good at this.
A lot of words have been thrown at me in my life.
Been dodging dictionaries my whole life.
Not all of them were kind.
Well, I would like to thank Martha and Charles for joining me today for Can You Crack the Cramp-Word? And before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can find you on social media and when new episodes come out?
Sure. So new episodes come out every week.
You can also catch our show every week on Medway Pride Radio in the UK or on the internet under
medwaypride.co.uk.
Yeah.
Yes, every Tuesday.
Tuesday night at 6 p.m. Eastern normally, but right now it's 7.
Yeah, 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 11 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time.
11 o'clock. Yeah,
yeah.
over in the UK.
Yeah. You can follow us on social at Full Circle Pod on Twitter, at Full Circle The Pod on Instagram, at Full Circle The Podcast on TikTok. It was what was available at the time that I signed up. Martha's social is I Martha Madrigal everywhere. Her writing can be found at iammarthamadrigal.wordpress.com, and I am at Never Scared everywhere.
Nice.
That's
I
who
love
we
it.
are. That's our stuff.
Yeah.
I love it.
That's our
And
stuff.
on that note, as always, I'm Lindsay, and I'll see you next time with another tale as old as crime.
Do you ever wonder what was there before Dodger Stadium? Or how hard shell tacos are actually pretty Mexican? Or how about the horrible history behind international adoption in Guatemala? Join us, Carmen and Christina, as we talk about Latin American history, sometimes involving stories about capitalism, corruption, and racism. Sometimes all three, but more importantly, stories about resistance, power, and community. Listen to Historias Unknown, new episodes every Thursday, available in your favorite podcast app and at historiasunknown.com.
Weird Distractions is a weekly true crime, paranormal, conspiracy theory podcast hosted by me, Alex. Each week, I tell you what I need a distraction from before diving into a topic to help me distract myself from whatever is going on. My hope is that you too can get a distraction from tuning in and maybe learn something on the way. From haunted hospitals to cold cases and every bizarre online theory in between, there's a little something for every weirdo out there. If this sounds up your alley, then join me every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on your favorite podcast platform, or search Weird Distractions Podcast on any social media account. Need a distraction? I got you.